First of all, let's talk about fractions in general. So fractions just describe parts of one whole. Say you have one whole pizza and you cut it exactly down the middle into two equal pieces. If you then take one out of those two pieces, you can say you have 1 out of 2, 1 over 2, or a half of a pizza. If you cut that same whole pizza into 4 equal pieces instead and then took one of those pieces, you can say you have 1 over 4, 1 out of 4, or 1/4 of the pizza. Top number in a fraction is called the numerator and the bottom number is called the denominator. One of the things we need to know how to do is to simplify a fraction. So let's say we want to write 18 over 40 as a fraction in its simplest form. So we want to simplify 18 over 40. If we start by writing 18 over 40, then we need to think of what we can divide both 18 and 40 by. Whatever we do to the top of the fraction, we have to do the same to the bottom in order to keep it the same fraction. So in this case, we could divide the top and the bottom by 2 because 2 goes into both 18 and 40, and that would give us 9 over 20. And that is the simplest form because there aren't any other numbers that go into both 9 and 20, so we can't do that division process again. Let's have a look at another example of this. So this time slightly bigger numbers, 72 over 90. Now in this case, we might decide to divide by 2 again on the top and the bottom, and that would give us 36 over 45. And then maybe you notice that 9 actually goes into both 36 and 45, so we can do that next. We can divide by 9 on the top and the bottom, and that would give us 4 over 5. And that's as simple as we can get. Now, you don't have to do the division in any particular order. So let's say you started with 72 over 90, but this time you decided to divide by 9 first. That's fine. So we'll divide by 9 first this time. And instead, what we'll get is 8 over 10. And then we can divide by 2. And that will give us 4 over 5 again. So you will get to the same final answer. Doesn't matter which order you do the divisions in. The next idea is finding equivalent fractions. So finding fractions that are the same as each other, but using different numbers. So if we use 2 over 3 or 2/3 as an example, this time you want to think about multiplying the top and the bottom by the same number. So we might want to multiply the top and the bottom by 2. And that's just a random choice, by the way. You can multiply it by whatever you like. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. So 4 over 6 or 4/6 is the same as 2/3. You can do this for as long as you like. So we can multiply again, maybe the top and bottom by 3 this time. And that will give us another equivalent fraction. 4 times 3 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. So 12 over 18 or 12/18 is another equivalent fraction to 2/3. As I said, you can multiply the top and bottom by whatever you like. So again, if we start with 2/3, and this time we could even multiply the top and the bottom by 100. As long as we do the same thing to the top and the bottom, then it will be equivalent. So this will give us 200 over 300. And again, that's equivalent to 2/3. Why do we need to know how to find equivalent fractions? It can be really useful when you have a question like this, which wants you to write fractions in order of size. For example, here's smallest to largest. The reason is it's really hard to compare fractions unless they have the same denominator or bottom number. So in this case, we want to change all of these fractions to be equivalent fractions with the same denominator. Looking at the denominators we have here, I can see that all of those bottom numbers will in fact go into 30. So 30 seems like a sensible choice to change all of the denominators to. The first one is already over 30, so we don't need to change anything. That's going to stay as 19 over 30. The next one, to get from 6 to 30, we need to times by 5. So let's do the same on the top to get 25. 3 times 10 is 30. 2 times 10 is 20. 15 times 2 is 30, so 22 on the top. And 5 times 6 is 30, so 3 times 6 is 18. Now they all have the same denominator, it's much easier to see which ones are bigger than others. So the smallest one is 18 over 30. So for our answer, we're going to start with 18 over 30, but actually write it in its original format, so 3/5. The next biggest was 19 over 30. After that is 20 over 30, so 2/3. Then 22 over 30, so 11 over 15. And finally 25 over 30, or 5/6. The next idea, really important, improper fractions and mixed numbers. So improper fractions, these are sometimes called top-heavy fractions. And these are fractions like 9/5, for example, or 9 over 5, where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. We need to know how to change that into what's called a mixed number. Those are the ones that look something like this. So big 1 and 4/5. These two are the same as each other. How did I get that? So what I did was consider how many times does 5 go into 9? And that's because the improper fraction was 9/5. 5 goes into 9 once with a remainder of 4. And that remainder goes on the top of the fraction there next to the big whole number. Notice that the denominator stays the same. Let's say now that we want to start with a mixed number. So for example, 2 3/4 or 2 wholes and 3/4. And this time we want to change it back into an improper fraction. In this case, this will be 11/4. The trick here is this number is what you get when you do 2 times 4 plus 3. So you do 2 times 4 plus 3. And again, the denominator stays the same. Now let's talk about adding and subtracting fractions. So for example, work out 2 1/5 plus 1 1/7. Now, anytime you're given mixed numbers, you want to change those into improper fractions first using the trick I just showed you. So for this one, 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 gives 11/5 because the denominator stays the same. And then 1 times 7 plus 1 is 8/7. Now, when we're adding or subtracting, we really need to have a common denominator. So in this case, think of a number that both 5 and 7 go into, for example, 35, and that can be our common denominator. To change 5 into 35, we need to times by 7. So whatever we do on the bottom, let's do that to the top as well, and that will give 77. And for the 7, we need to times by 5, and 8 times 5 is 40. Once they have a common denominator, you can simply just add the fractions together. The denominator will stay the same common denominator, 35, and the top is what you get when you add 77 and 40, and that would give you 117. In this case, the question doesn't say whether we need to leave our answer as an improper fraction or a mixed number, so 117/35 is fine, but if you did want to change it into a mixed number, we need to think about how many times does 35 go into 117. On the side, I would just write down the 35 times tables. So 35, 70, 105, 140. And now I can see that 35 goes into 117 3 times. So big 3 with 12 left over to get from 105 to 117. So 12/35. Work out 5/6, take away 2/5. Again, with addition or subtraction, you always need a common denominator. So in this case, we need to think about a number that both 6 and 5 go into. So for example, 30. Figure out what we need to do to change 6 into 30, which is times by 5, giving 25/30 there. And then 5 times 6 is 30. So the top for that one will be 12. And again, when you do the subtraction, the denominator stays the same. And the top is what you get when you do 25 take away 12, so 13. Once again, really important to have that common denominator there. Multiplying fractions. In this case, work out 1 5/6 times 2/9. Again, whenever you have mixed numbers in a calculation, you should always change them into improper fractions first to make it easier. So 1 times 6 plus 5 is 11. Denominator stays the same, times 2/9. In this case, you don't need to have a common denominator. So in some ways, multiplying is easier than adding or subtracting. You just need to multiply the tops together and then multiply the bottoms together. So in this case, 11 times 2 is 22, and 6 times 9 is 54. And that's the answer. If they did want you to simplify this one, we need to think of a number that goes into both 22 and 54. In this case, maybe 2. So divide the top and bottom by 2 and see what you get. In this case, it would be 11/27. And that's a simplified answer. Last operation is division. Now for this one, there is a nice acronym you can use, KFC. It stands for keep, flip, change. What it means is you want to keep the first fraction as it is. So in this case, 1/7. You want to flip the second fraction upside down. It's going to become 4/3. And then the C, change, means we want to change the division symbol into a multiplication symbol. And then you can go ahead and just do your multiplication like we did earlier. So 1 times 4 is 4, and 7 times 3 is 21. Next idea, finding fractions of amounts. So for example, work out 3/4 of 180. I'll show you 2 different methods to do this. Method 1 is a bit of a shortcut. So what you do is you take the number that you want to find the fraction of and you divide it by the denominator first. So in this case, 180 divided by 4. And then whatever answer you get from that, you multiply that by the numerator. So in this case, 3. So if we work this out down here, 180 divided by 4, just using bus stop division. So 4 doesn't go into 1, there's a remainder of 1. 4 goes into 18 4 times, remainder 2, and 4 goes into 20 5 times. So 180 divided by 4 is 45, and then 45 times 3. 3 times 5 is 15, 3 times 4 is 12, plus the 1, 13. So overall, the answer is 135. Method 2, some people prefer this. It's up to you. So when we do 3/4 of 180, we consider that word of to mean times. So it's going to be 3/4 times 180 over 1, because 180 wholes is the same as saying 180 over 1. And then we just treat it as a normal fraction multiplication. So I'd probably do the denominators first. 4 times 1 is just 4. And then to get 3 times 180, we could do a column multiplication. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 8, 24. 3 times 1, 3, plus 2 gives 5, 540. Now, it's a good idea to simplify this. So again, doing the division trick, maybe divide the top and bottom by 4 this time. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and then 540 divided by 4 we can do with a bus stop. 4 goes into 5 once, remainder 1. 4 goes into 14 3 times, remainder 2, and then 4 goes into 20 5 times. So we get 135 over 1, which is the same as just 135. Same answer, 2 different methods. Last idea, finding one thing as a fraction of another. So for example, work out 16 as a fraction of 20. All that means is that you want to put 16 on the top of the fraction and 20 on the bottom. And then you can simplify it. So we could divide the top and bottom by 4. That would be 4 over 5. And that's it. If you want to do 20 as a fraction of 16, that's just the other way around then. So 20 goes on the top and 16 goes on the bottom. And again, simplifying. So divide by 4 on the top and the bottom. So we get 5 over 4 this time. That as a mixed number would be 1 whole and 1/4. That's it for now. If you found this video useful, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And do share this with anyone else that you think might find it helpful. Thanks, and see you next time.